Welcome back and thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, share, and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. If you are a subscriber, I would really appreciate it if you could share it. Try to get some more subscriptions, try to get some little growth in the channel here. I do have fun doing this, and part of the fun I have is talking to people on the comments. So if you have a comment, throw her in the little comment thingy there. The last couple videos, you've probably noticed there has been a radiator in the M715. Now, that radiator took some thought process, some modifications, some things that didn't go right to get it figured out. So I kind of wanted to do a little standalone section on the cooling system for this Jeep. This is what it looked like all finished. Now, how do you get it there? You know, you really want as big a radiator cooling system capacity as you can fit. An 8.1 is going to build heat. It's got cubic inches, it's got power, it's going to build heat. So I want to try to get as big a radiator as I can in this and it still look right. And it still work efficiently. You know, it's not going to do you any good if you can't run the thing cool down the road. So I had a few thoughts. I thought about trying to adapt like a full-size Chevy truck radiator in there, and there's just no way without just multitudes of hacking, and you know, that's not what I want to do. So the later model full-size Jeeps have a little bit wider radiator than the early ones, and they mount it a little different. And they had a rake to the core that matched the fan and shroud, so it all kind of lined up and created a little more efficient cooling system. So I used that radiator on my Cherokee Chief with the LS conversion, and it's perfect. I've had no overheating issues with that at all. Now, LS's, I think, run fairly cool anyway. I don't think it's hard to keep those cool, but that radiator is the biggest one I could get. And BJ's OffRoad, who is the supplier of a lot of these full-size Jeep parts that I've used time and time again. Actually, the Chief is in one of their calendars a couple years ago. But PRC OffRoad makes radiators for them, and they're a really nice thick core, aluminum, nicely welded, nice tanks. They fit perfect in the later model Jeeps. You can order them with the in and out hose necks at any configuration you want. So I ordered that radiator with the Chevy conversion inlet and outlet neck. I also had them plumb in a port so that I can thread in a 5/8 nipple for my heater core return. Got to have someplace for that water to go after it leaves the heater core. So I went ahead and ordered that radiator, and now I will show you how I had to modify the front of the Jeep to accept that radiator, number one, then how to put a shroud and a fan that fits on it so that it'll run cool. You can run an electric fan on these. The later model and the newer versions of electric fans have become far better than what they were 20 years ago. You know, all these Jeep JK conversions with an LS or the Hemi, they're running electric fans, and they're using like the Camaro fans, things like that. Or, you know, those high output adjustable spall fans. So worst case scenario, if I have to, I'll run an electric fan on this, but for the purposes of this vehicle, I'm gonna try to maintain it like it was a mechanical fan, like it came with from the factory. First up, you can see the right side radiator support sits further to the center of the vehicle than the left. So first part of this is I'm cutting that radiator support out. Then I'm cutting the lower section out, making sure I can drop the radiator in and still keep it away from the steering box. Once that's all cut out, I set the radiator in to test fit it. I took the old radiator support, drilled the spot welds out so I could set it back into the area I want it, grind down my new paint, spot weld it in, weld it back to the body mount up front there, and then I can set the radiator back in. Got the right side rail back in. We left the left side rail alone because the engine is just slightly off center to the passenger. The radiator will now fit in, and I'm hoping I can use a fan shroud. The only other thing I did have to do to make this fit a Jeep radiator is I notched this. And then down here, I had to trim this lower section out so that the radiator would drop down a little bit further. Test fit is complete. Can't ask much more for a fit than that. You can see here I've got a whole bunch of radiator hoses. These are stuff that I have bought, cut, fit, don't fit, spares, and leftovers. And I always go here first before I go spend more money at the parts store, which inevitably I end up going to the parts store and spending more money. But I've also got a whole bunch of fans and stuff like that. So I save a lot of this stuff because this is one of those areas I think is kind of critical when doing these conversions. If you go down to the local parts house and just ask if you can go look at their radiator hoses and have a piece of wire, something with some shape to it. I've still got some of this stuff left over from the FC, and it's turned out to be pretty cool stuff because I can take this and I can shape it, and then I can just go down to the parts house and start comparing it with radiator hoses. Now I found a good one for the upper radiator hose, but the lower hose, I found one that might have worked okay, but it sat real close to the compressor of the AC. So I'm actually going to use this on the lower hose. I'll just put a connector for the water pump, and I'll put a connector for the lower outlet of the radiator. Should work okay. When you find a hose at the parts house, save the number in case you ever need it again. I trimmed the edges off it, and this one fit right in that little space. The lower hose, I found one that kind of came around the compressor, but I wanted it rigid enough to stay away from that compressor clutch, so I used the aluminum radiator hose to section it. The heater hose port I had put in the radiator is the perfect return for the heater core. Got that all done. This fan shroud fits a later model full-size Jeep radiator. It's the same fan shroud I used on my Cherokee Chief LS conversion. It's the same shroud I modified and used on the J20, and I'm doing this big radiator in the M715 for a full size. So again, I want to use a fan shroud that should work well with it. Now, like I said, I've modified this fan shroud. It used to be about this tall. And over the last couple of trucks I've worked on, I've cut it down and tried to make stuff work. Now all I use this piece for is mock-up, and when I figure out what the combination is, then I will get a new one that's the right height and blah, blah, blah. So, start off with, this is the fan that's for the 8.1. It's obviously too big. Now I have another fan this one, if the engine is centered absolutely perfect and the engine never torques, this one would probably work, but it's still a skosh on the big side. So my thinking is, let's just use an LS plastic fan. It should work. Been working on my Cherokee Chief, and I've had no issues with it. This fan here, I'm gonna test fit a couple times, but this one's off that 97 Chevy with a 454. It's got a lot of fan blade and fan clutch. I bought a new LS fan and initially used the fan clutch for the 8.1, but I discovered it really didn't kick in. I think it's worn out, so I bought a severe duty fan clutch for an LS. You only need to hit that a little bit. You can do it with just a hammer and a punch. But you want to set that so that it doesn't come off when it free spins, like if you shut the engine off or start it and accelerate too quick or whatever the off direction is. So, now you can see where the fan shroud has that air gap. So it is pulling air from the whole radiator. Like I said, granted, it would be better if this had a nice curved action, but I mean, this is a good size radiator. I did have to install a small shim in the shroud, and the only thing left now is the overflow reservoir. These were leftover pieces from the FC build. Just cut me out a couple and I'll make them out. Little of my traditional black paint and some grade 8 bolts, and we are fully installed. Finally found a reservoir I liked how it fits, so had to buy a couple of them, but that's okay. Got my feed from the radiator into the bottom. It's close to the same height, so it can suck the coolant back out. And the top hose is for if it really overheats or blows out coolant, it goes from there and then down and spits out here by the frame. The same time I'm doing this radiator modification, I'm also cutting a hole in the radiator support or the header here in order to accommodate a fresh air intake. I'm probably not going to be able to do a complete cold air intake, but I want to get as cool air as I can in from the outside. I tried everything I could to make a factory air cleaner work, but it just wasn't going to fit under the hood. I took a cold air kit that you can buy for a pickup truck, basically, and made it fit under the hood, kinda. But at this point, I'm going to have to finish the hood and put the hood on in order to see where I can run all my piping. I did figure out as well, this hood has been on fire before, but little sanding, little primer, little paint, and you gotta put the star on. After I ordered several chunks of 4-inch tubes, some 90 degree, some 120 degree, plus some 90 degree boots and clamps, start cutting. Now, after you cut these aluminum pieces, make sure you file off and get rid of all of the debris inside. You certainly don't want to suck up pieces of aluminum into the engine. That'll make for a bad day after you're done with this event. Kind of like an erector set for grown-ups, but this one took a little work to get it to all cooperate. You can see by the height of this why we need to put the hood on to make sure we got clearance. But it may seem kind of weird doing the air intake and the cooling system kind of on the same video. But in my opinion, the intake is part of the cooling system. Colder or cool combustion air intake going into the combustion chamber does two things. First of all, cooler air compacts better, is denser, creates more oxygen, a little more fuel, a little more bang for the buck. Second thing that cool air going into your combustion chamber does is it lowers that combustion temperature. And well, bottom line is it's just more power, more efficiency. Watching the air intake temperature and your timing on something like an HP Tuner's, a laptop, where you can monitor the intake air temperature and the timing, how they kind of do that together. You get a whole bunch of heat under here and a whole bunch of hot air going in through the air intake temperature. You'll see the timing drop back. And I saw on one of these, it dropped the timing back 15, 16 degrees right off idle. So that will create a lot of performance variation there. I myself try to make a complete cold air intake. On this, I just don't have the room. So I'm creating this shield, which I've still got a little bit of an air gap up to the hood, but it's blocking the cooling fan. It's sucking most of the air around here. Remember, cut the hole so stuff coming in is gonna primarily go. No, this isn't 100% efficient, but it is far more efficient than just letting your air cleaner suck in the hot air that the radiator fan's blowing out. So keep that in mind when you're doing these, that your intake will definitely affect your cooling system. I'm on my way to the Rocky Mountain Off-Road show. I put 3 of my rigs in there and kind of do my own little thing. But the show itself has a lot of really cool vehicles, and I can assure you most of the stuff out here doesn't get pretty paint jobs for the most part. Most of this stuff is really used off-road. There's a lot of Jeeps you can get good ideas from, a lot of buggies, anything from stock clear up to comp buggies, which there's a bunch of those here because they're going to be doing pinch point the next day. As a side note, I would do a live video audio feed, but they've got music playing in the background really loud, and I'll end up with a copyright ding. So I just did a voiceover, and you can see the show, and then there's a vendor show, which has a lot of really cool stuff. And this next rig here is going to be one of my favorites of the day.
Got the Banks tuner, PRP seats, switch pros, Fury shift knobs, GMRS, ham, CB, bullet point mounting solutions, black view camera system that has 4G and Wi-Fi capability, so you can access and see everything around the Jeep and hear everything at anywhere in the world.
Wow. Me being a geometry nerd for suspension, this one is done absolutely beautiful. The vendor row, you can see a lot of the sponsors of the Jeep Club. There's a lot of manufacturers out here, trail maters out here, you can see them there. Some cool vehicles, some cool conversions. You know, just a lot of our local businesses are out here. And then there's also a free swap meet for people that are peddling stuff or trading for things. Then we've got the obstacle course. A lot of people just drive their own rigs out. There's a lot of people out here that just give rides to people. I like giving kids rides in my Black Rock crawler, and if they can reach the pedals, they can drive it. So it's always a lot of fun out on the obstacle course. After all of us rock crawlers are done out there, they bring out some big kid toys and guys that are running either 4400 cars for like King Hammers or race trucks.
That's Rory. Everyone knows him from Trailmater, but he's got rock crawlers too. He's giving the kids rides. I don't think so. I'm still trying to figure out why on earth he's living up there. This is Shelby. He's going to break that one.
And he did. Last year he broke the rear end. This year he broke the front end.
Not a good idea. Put the seat always a fan of the full-size Jeeps.
They did jump. Yeah. They took fans off. Yeah.
Now you're going to be famous. Now again, yeah. Okay, she's been coaching. Now she's just going to show them how to do it.
This is Jeff Bates in his, it's a little single seat comp buggy that he's put this old Vicky body on. It's all fiberglass, but it really looks cool out rock crawling. Shelby has the least expensive, lowest horsepower truck, probably puts on a better show than any of these guys. He's a lot of fun to watch in that little battle trap racing. As the day goes, it seems like they give him a little more throttle towards the end there. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. I do appreciate it. See you next time.